Hi everyone, welcome back to Behavior Canvas, India's first ABA exam prep channel. Okay, so let me ask you a simple question. As a behavior analyst, what matters more, getting results or doing things ethically? Because in real practice, you will face situation where both did not feel aligned. And that's exactly why the QABA Ethical Code of Conduct exists. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's session, we will go through the entire QABA Ethics Code, updated version March 2024, and we are going to cover all 10 units, all 10 domains in a way that helps you to understand the concept clearly, apply them in real situation, and prepare for exams like QASP-S, ABAT, or QBA. So let's begin with the first point, compliance. Okay, so domain one focuses on compliance, ethical standard laws and responsibilities. So first point is very important, and these ethic code of ethics are important for all. Either you are a BAT or QSPS or QBA, every behavior analyst professional should follow all the ethics rules. Okay, so the first ethic rule is uh first point is compliance. What does it mean comply? Okay, so let's start. The certificates dedicate themselves to read, understand, and utilize the ethical code of conduct as a standard of care. Lack of knowledge of the code of conduct does not an excuse accountability. Okay, so this means you need to that means every certificant is responsible to read, understand, and utilize all the ethical code of conduct. And the second one is follow the rules, laws, and regulation. So all the certificates should follow all the rules, regulations, and laws and policies and ethical standard that applies to the practice of applied behavior analysis. And you must follow all these rules, laws, regulations in every place, in every institution, and all the institutions have their own institutional policies. So as a professional, you should maintain and follow all the rules and regulations. And now the third one is ethical responsibility. So certificates follow all the ethical codes and supervision standard related to ABA as required by the additional license and certification membership held, and they abide by patent law, institution rules, professional behavior standard within their provisions of the service. So in this ethical responsibility, you first of all, if you observe another certificates violating ethics, first you have to inform your supervisor, or you need to informing the certificate of the violation. If the behavior continues, so then you can report to the QABA board. If there is a risk to safety, neglect, or legal concern, then you should report immediately to the QABA and the local authorities. And so that any certificate under investigation or facing a legal charges or directly related to their professional work as a behavior analyst or related to their mistreatment of vulnerable population should be reported to the QABA board with 3 business days. So Also, any investigation or legal charges related to professional work should be reported within 3 days. This is important. Within 3 days, you should report to the QABA board or the local authorities. And the final one is ethical dilemma. So, in ethical dilemma, if you are unsure about the practice, like professional standard or compliance with the QABA ethical code of conduct, will be reported to the supervisor or leadership within a scope of service. Okay, when you are in doubt, you should consult or connect with your supervisor, discuss with other professionals, and refer back to the code. So, when in doubt, it is best to review the code of conduct and utilize supervision relationship for further discussion. And discussion of the individual situations provide learning experience for all the professionals and ensure integrity of profession. Next is competency. Competency, scope of competency. So, you must only provide services within your training, your education, the education, training, and experience. If something is outside your scope, so you should seek supervision from professional, another professional, qualified individual or organization knowledgeable in the service provider, or you can refer the client also. So paraprofessional development. So you are responsible for continuing, where is it? So you are professional for continuing education, improving your skills, and staying updated with all the knowledge. Okay, so professional development. So for this, you are responsible for CEU's continuing education units, and you will focus on your improving your skills, and you should stay update with the current knowledge or any new research that is happening to your field. You should aware about it. You are responsible for continuing education basically. And the third one is integrity 2.3. Integrity that includes that certificate will demonstrate trustworthiness, honesty, fairness, and sincerity. First one is you should credentialed professional maintain the highest standard of professional behavior and act in the best interest of the client. And the second one is you should be honest, fairness, and sincere. And third is you should the certificate uphold the principle of behavior analysis, utilizing the scientific method for treatment and intervention. Certificates engages with client, colleagues, and families and stakeholders in a manner that promotes honesty and trustworthy working environment. Working environment. And the fifth point is certificate provide truthful, thorough, and accurate information directly related to the education, qualification, supervision, requirement, service rendered, etc. to the QABA board. uh, Certificate adheres to the rules and regulation regarding the examination and the testing process, audits and safeguard any and all material related to the examination QABA material. And certificate provide the accurate prompt information to the QABA regarding the application, certification, and renewal. It is responsibility of the certificants to maintain current and accurate contact information records, up to date publicly registry, and current employment status by informing QABA in writing of any need adjustment. So the point 2.3, integrity, this includes honesty, fairness, using scientific evidence based method, providing accurate information about your qualification, and an important part, impaired certificates. If physical, psychological, or legal issues affect your ability, you must stop providing services, arrange transition of care, and seek help. Client welfare is always a priority. Client is priority. So you should be, yeah, this point we have discussed here, the physical, psychological, or legal factor impeding the ability to provide, then you should prioritize the client. Third one is privacy and confidentiality. So in privacy and confidentiality, three like domain 3 basically focuses on protecting clients information, confidential information. All clients information is confidential, including identity, identity information, diagnosis, assessment, treatment, prognosis are confidential, and you must follow privacy rules and applicable to your country and at minimum standards similar to HIPAA. HIPAA. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. And disclosure is only allowed with the written one second, where is this? Yeah, disclosure is disclosure is only allowed with the written consent. Disclosure is only allowed with the written context, and it should be happen when a legal required to provide uh prevent harm. Okay. And yes, all there are two more points that I need to clear. So in country other than USA, all communication and identifying information in mail, fax, or other written documents are to comply with HIPAA or state law of country of residence guidelines. Certificates utilize appropriate security measure of encryption when transferring a confidential information, and all supervision through video recording and telesupervision, and all communication system will be compliant with state country's privacy and confidentiality law. HIPAA complaints were applicable. Certificates keep confidential all QABA examination information and other proprieties information will prevent an unauthoritated disclosure of exam information. So you should focus on these things. Okay. So there is 3.3 section. It says inadvertent disclosure of confidential communication. So this includes the information of this in so in this case you should inform the client immediately and take steps to prevent further breach. 3.3 exit informed closure, informed consent. Informed consent is a process in which a provider obtain a written agreement from stakeholder which demonstrate their ability willingness to participate in a in a related service or certificates guidance. So the first one is, so there is first point is assessment. Certificate obtained certificates obtain informed consent prior to conducting assessment, treatment, consultative services, research, and other professional services, or any changes in the treatment. My supervisor always make sure like we should take the consent before any assessment, treatment, or consultative services, or any video recording or any data collection. You should take the consent. Second one, informed consent will provided an explanation of the process, procedure, or an assessment being conducted. Informed consent must be written form with the signature from the stakeholder, provided free of duress, threats, fear, and maintained in the participant's file. Consent information is expressed in a language that is understandable to the client receiving services. Hmm. Okay. Next thing is informed consent is obtained from the only individual receiving services, legal caregiver, or other person legally authorized to represent the client, such as stakeholder. Consent to share any information is obtained in writing by clients for each specific and individual incident, except where this information protect the client from mortal harm or when required by federal, state, or local municipality law. So it must be written, it must be voluntary, and it must be understandable. So these three things you need to take care of it. Okay. So the next is work product. Work product, all clients related work. All clients related work remains confidential and achieved up to 7 years after treatment or as indicated by HIPAA or state country law, whichever is more stringent. So here you need to memorize. Okay. So here you need to memorize three. Oh, wait. 3 days to report investigations or charges to QABA board. And for the second one that we have just learned just now, 7 years minimum record retention after termination of services. Termination of services. Okay, let's see the next programming. Just a second, I think I missed something. Yes, provision of services. So, provision of services, we just missed something, I think. Maintaining yeah, there is some points. Okay, maintaining confidentiality. Certificates maintain confidentiality of all the client information. Certificate avoids social media. Hmm. Avoids social media content with client or client related information, and all clients records data, photographs, videos, and discussion of the client, to unauthorized individual utilizing client information or for clinical discussion or presentation will only be on need to know basis, and all identifying information should remain closely guarded. So we cannot use any child, any client video, data, or any clinical information for our social media stuff. This is very wrong and unethical practices. And in India, you can see many of the professionals are used to used to post their clients' photographs, videos on Instagram stories or WhatsApp status, and this is unethical. We should not do that. We should maintain the confidentiality of the client and their family. 3.7, the confidentiality communicate after the termination of relationship that I told you just now. For all the client information should be we should have for 7 years, and all the communication between client and stakeholder and an organization or certificate should remain confidential for the life of the client and the after client death, except in cases where such communication must be disclosed to prevent harm to self or others. Okay, the fourth one is provision of services. Provision of services. Okay. So provision, imagine you are building a treatment plan. Where do you start? From an assessment, right? So assessment certificants conduct and interpret only the assessment which are supported by research within their scope of practice, training, and educational understanding. So research supported, it should be research supported within your scope, and data based, not gut feeling or not. Only we should focus on data. And here is something. One second. Yeah, there is. So all the certificates make recommendation based on the results from the assessment supported through research to properly address the behavior or medical diagnosis of the client. Results from the assessment in conjunction with environment and functional basis of the behavior drive the recommendation for treatment. And certificates engages only in data based decision making, not on the gut feeling. No feeling, only evidence. Explaining result. Certificant should explain result of assessment or client progress in a clear and concise term. When possible, result should be explained in the native language to the client or stakeholder. Specialty consultation. Certificate advise client to seek assessment and consultation with specialties outside the scope of behavior analysis when demanded. Deemed behavior may relate it to other factors. Specialities may include but are not limited to medical, biological, developmental, speech and language, or occupational therapy, psychological, psychiatric, nutrition, or other related disciplines. Certificate coordinate client care with the other professionals who may contribute to overall treatment efficacy. Programming. Certificate develop treatment plans with inputs and consent from the client or legal guidance. Certificates ensure that the proposed intervention are in alignment with the client's needs, values, beliefs, and social significances. Behavior change plan. This is most important part. Behavior change plan. Certificate tailors behavior program to meet the needs of individual client. Certificate develop clear and concise behavior change program that can be implemented by all team members. All behavior change programs should be evidence based, empirically validate. Certificate develop goal and objective that have clear mastery criteria. Client consent is obtained prior to any alteration or behavior change. Program which significantly changes the direction of the treatment. For example, changes in behavior, changes in procedure not previously discussed, addition or modification goals. Language used in the behavior change program written in a way that is understandable to the client, receiving services, and their caregiver. So we should use the language that the client or stakeholder that can understand. Behaviors and goals and outline in the behavior change program has a clear operational definition, topography that is observable, measurable by all the members of the team. Behavior plans provide clear goal necessary to client success, including objectives, expectation, and environmental factor. Environmental factor. So for 4.5 behavioral change, it should be evidence based, empirically validate, individualized, clients value and believe, observable and measurable by all client, observable and measurable by all the team members. Written in a language, simple language that can caregiver or stakeholder can understand, and consented before any change or any modification in behavior plan. Environmental variables. Environmental variables, circumstances, events such as which contribute to the efficacy lack thereof of treatment rendered are evaluated on an ongoing basis to promote the best opportunities to success in order to increase treatment efficacy, and certificants communicate with the appropriate parties about any recommended modification or alternatives to the client's information. 4.7 exam favorite. Okay, so 4.7 punishment procedure. So reinforcement first always. Reinforcement procedure are used prior to considering punishment procedure. If punishment procedure are necessary following evidence-based assessment, they are used in conjunction with functionally equivalent reinforcement procedure and an appropriate schedule of reinforcement. If a punishment procedure is implemented, certificate monitor the behavior to ensure the procedure is not having an adverse effect of the client or behavior. If the client behavior puts the client's health or safety at risk, become more frequent and more intense, the procedure is immediately removed. So reinforcement first always if punishment is used, it must be paired with a functionally equivalent reinforcement procedure. If the behavior get worse or more intense after the procedure begins, remove it immediately. Client safety overrides program consistencies every time. 4.8 restrictive intervention. So, certificate must consider least restrictive intervention for the client. Least restrictive first. This is not just a principle, it's a requirement. 4.9 protect from harm or reinforcers. Certificates actively protect their client from harm throughout the treatment. Reinforcers are chosen so that they are not potentially hazardous to the client's health or safety. In addition, client specific abilities are taken to the consideration when choosing a reinforcer. 5 point responsibilities to the client and client's right. Identifying the client. So, domain 5 is about responsibilities to the people you serve, and domain 6 is about your responsibility to everyone else you interact with, colleagues, supervisees, and stakeholders. And this domain 5 is high yield point at the start of the services and discuss and documents uh, criteria for completion and discontinuation. Don't wait until the end of and to have this conversation. Client have a right to request your credentials. You must provide them, and you are mandated reporter suspected abuse, neglect of a child or elder or dependent adult, so you should report immediately. So clients should consent to the treatment prior to the services provided. Guidelines of the services. Guidelines for service confidential information, rules for mandatory reporting at the one of the one of at one set of a service. Certificate discuss and document criteria for completing of services and criteria for discontinuing and transferring services. Client's right. 5.2 client right. 5.2 client right. Certificants are aware of clients' legal and ethical rights, will act if those rights have been violated or at risk of violation. Certificants do not engage in unfair discrimination based on age, race, ethnicity, gender or gender identity or sexual orientation or social economic status, religion, disability, or any other basis of prescribed by law. Client will receive accurate and thorough data reports, treatment, and progress information that is jargon free and presented in a clear, comprehensive manner. Client may request the current valid credential of any service provider. 5.3 Obligation and mandated report. Suspected misconduct or known child or other or dependent adult and abuse neglected is immediately reported to the service supervisor or department leadership, including additional authoritative agencies as required by the certificant state, federal law, or local municipality law. The third one of 5.4 is third party involvement is in services. So, what does it mean, third party involvement in services? At the on, at the onset of service provided at the request of third party, a clear explanation is provided to all parties to the relationship and financial responsibilities to the client, and any potential conflicts and limited limits to the confidentiality. Certificant's ultimate responsibility lies with the care of the client. If a client of interest arises with a third party, active steps are taken to resolve the conflict and make all issues transparent. Transition services, if no resolution can be made in the best interest of the client. 6. Avoiding harm. Certificates serve with their scope scope of practice and take reasonable steps to avoid harm avoid harming their clients, supervisors, and other which they work. Certificates take reasonable steps to minimize harm where it is unavoidable and forcible. Unfair discrimination. There should be The client will not engage in unfair discrimination based on age, race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, social economic status, religion, disability, or any other basis of mandated by law. 6.3 Harassment. Certificant will not knowingly or willingly engages in any type of behavior that is demeaning or harassing, including any form of sexual harassment towards subordinates, supervisees, clients, or colleagues, or other with they engages in their professional capacity. 6.4 Professional relationship. Certificates follow QABA non-discriminative policy as found in the candidate's handbook on the QABA website. Certificates refrain from unprofessional conduct that conduct a general ethical standard of practice. They maintain a professional boundaries while maximizing self-reliance and independence in those they serve. Multiple relationship. Certificates avoid multiple relationship with the client's supervisor, supervisees, colleagues, stakeholder. They also avoid accepting gift which could negatively impact the certificate's effectiveness, objectivity, competence there in their current function. Exception may be made in case of cultural consideration where gifts such as food, tokens of appreciation may be customary, and to refuse would be insensitive if a potential harmful multiple relationship has inadvertently occurred, the certificant take reasonable steps to resolve the matter and immediately contact the supervisor or supervisor's superior. Okay, so domain 6 basically it's a domain 6 basically you need to understand about these all things. Multiple relationship, you should avoid them. Cultural gift giving is a recognition exception. Using judgment like use judgment sexual relationship with your current client, supervisee, or their family members. You should never do that. Former adult clients, minimum 2 years of wait, terminating services. Okay, wait, we are going to cover these things, right? Okay, so exploitation. Certificate refrains from engaging in exploitative relationship with subordinates, supervisees, client, or any other they interact with their professional capacity. So there will be no dual relationship in professional with your supervisees, clients, or supervisor, or any colleague or any client. Sexual relationship and treatment. Certificate avoid sexual and intimate relationship with the subordinate supervisees, clients, with their family members, or those close to clients. Relationship with the former adult client should be avoided minimum of 2 years. Okay. Conflict of interest. Certificate Certificates make a reasonable attempt to identify their personal professional basis. They refrain from engaging in professional role where personal, scientific, legal, and financial or other interests impact their effectiveness, objectivity, and competency in their performance. Clarification of roles. Clarification of roles prior to the onset of services and thereafter, where appropriate, certificates identify the client's right, including parental caretaker rights, scope of services, and role of participants in services, and limited to the confidentiality. So you should clarify all these things. Interruption and treatment of services. So certificate can take reasonable steps to transfer the client care if services are interrupted or terminated, and will make a reasonable effort to continue care for all aspects of treatment. Certificates provide scientific notice minimum 2 weeks to the client and employer when there is impending changes of services. Certificates ensure any pending client related documentation is complete when terminating treatment and provided any information post transition that serves in the best interest of the client's care. Fourth one, discontinuation of services occur if the client requests termination, if the client is not benefiting from the treatment, or the client no longer needs of services. Refer, Referrals and alternative steps towards treatment are completed prior to discontinuation if the treatment is ineffectual unless precluded by the client or third party payers. Supervisions and training. So, supervision and training is very important to understand these things. So, supervision get its own domain, and that tells you how seriously QABA takes it. If you are a paraprofessional or you work under only prescribed supervision, that's not a suggestion. Practicing independently without it could mean immediate revocation of your certification, no exceptions. Supervisor, this is like, and supervisors You are like all the supervisors, you are responsible for the accuracy, confidentiality, professional development, and everyone development of everyone you supervise. You must have a crisis plan in a place. You must be reachable during crisis, and your certification must be active. Lapsed certification means you stop supervising immediately. Means if your license has expired, you should stop supervising. So these are the thing. Let's read out all the guidelines in this domain, supervision and training. So all the paraprofessionals provide treatment only when receiving receiving the prescribed supervision and outlined in QABA policies and professionals. Paraprofessionals who practice independently without the appropriate supervision or work unknowingly assist other participants to obtain certification or recertification by fraud or deception may be grounds for immediate revocation or denial of certification. Only the qualified professionals as outlined in the QABA policies and procedure candidates handbook may provide supervision. Supervision may not be delegated to unqualified individual. Supervisors are not required to be employed at the same site as supervisee, but they must be available in person, via phone, email, or via another modality. Supervisor or supervisory comply with the QABA regulation as well as institutional rules they relate to the supervisor. 7.2 7.2 Supervisor through monitor performance. Supervisor take responsibility for those supervisors, ensure that the best practice is always adhered and the supervisees are in compliances with the QABA policies and regulations, ethical code of conduct, and any governing law as it relate to the treatment of the client and client care. Supervisor responsible for the accuracy and effectiveness of services and provision, confidentiality, and professional development of each supervisee. Supervisor obtain client information background and clinical medical history of each for each client for which they supervise and care. So the supervisor should have all the background information, clinical medical history, everything he or she should know so that the intervention can be beneficial for the client, and it would be easy for the trainer or for the supervisee. Supervisor provides data driven and ethical treatment for all the clients under their supervision. Supervisors provide an ongoing, clear, and objective feedback in keeping with the individual goals and criteria for the supervisee at the one set of supervision. So, the supervisor should provide an ongoing, clear, and objective feedback for all the supervisory sessions. Supervisor ensure that all the training protocol, procedure, curriculum is effectively designed and it should be evidence based, empirically validated, and relevant to the nature of supervisor's profession. Informing the clients about supervision. So at the onset of the treatment, supervisors ensure that the client are notified when treatment is being provided by a trainee, and that services will include supervisors oversight, including a disclosure of all treatment related information. Supervision during a crisis. So supervisor have a crisis plan in place and are available in person by phone to assist trainees in the event of the client emergency. 7.5 Supervision limitations. Supervision limitations. So supervisors should not supervise family members, spouse, or other with whom they share a close relationship. In a situation this is unavoidable, supervisor will contact the QABA board for guidance in the adhering to supervision requirement. Supervisors refrain from supervising if they do not feel professionally, psychologically, physically competent to provide appropriate supervision. And supervisors do not request supervisees to disclose personal information except when used to evaluate supervisees' competency to provide services. Supervisors maintaining active certification. Yeah. Okay. So this is very important that I had told you when we started the domain 7, supervision and training. So supervisor maintain an active certification, complete required CEUs, obtain the appropriate training, relevant experience needed to the effectively supervisees training. Supervisor are unavailable. Supervisors are unable to supervise if their certification becomes inactive. Okay. Supervising assists training with certification documentation. Prior to the beginning supervision, supervisor ensure that the agreement are in place between the supervisor and supervisee that is clear, legally and binding and identified objective outcomes of the criteria and termination of the provision. Both supervisor and supervisee maintain all documents of the supervision at all time. The supervisor guides and assists the trainee in correctly completing all the required documents. Only the time period that are there to restricted definitions of supervision in QABA policies and procedure are calculated toward the fieldwork and acknowledged on logs and verification form. Fees for supervisor, context of the context for contract for independent supervision services will contain set of fees that are fair and commensurate with the services provided with the location with that location with and with objectively define the terms for services. Services are not provided under a barter agreement unless a clear and legal binding agreement is in place and customary for the area which where services are provided. Domain 8, uh one second. Domain 8. And yes, 7.7, I need to clear this again. So before supervision begin, you should have a clear and legally binded agreement must be in a place. Both supervisor and supervision keep all the documents and all the time. Only time period that meets a restricted definition of supervision count towards the fieldwork hours. So you should maintain your fieldwork log sheet and fieldwork supervision documents, which is available on the QABA website itself. So you should be uh, regular for your supervision documentation. Okay. Record keeps and feces. So for this, just a second. Record keeping and feces. So record content and record context. So the certificates appropriately and accurately certificates are up. Certificates appropriately and array, my pen is not working. Just a second. Okay. Certificates appropriately and accurately document all the professional work to including progress data, reports, disclosure of confidential information, electronic communication, records, and manner consistent with the scientific and legal presentation, safeguarding of records. When you read all these QABA code of ethics, you will be you will be able to understand, because these all the domains are written in very simple language. You just read all the things and your ethics domain will be covered. And most of the question in QABA board like have been asked from this domain, like in a large number of questions you can see when you sit for the exam. So this domain is very important and very uh, useful for your practice, and you need to be aware about all the code of ethics, and you should follow also. Okay, so we are at 8.2. Certificates ensure that all the record, electronic, written, and other medium are created, maintained, and transferred and stored and disposed in accordance with the applicable state, country laws, HIPAA regulation, QABA policies, and procedures. Length of the record keeping is for 7 years. 7 years after the termination of services otherwise required by the law. Fees and referral agreement. Certificate accurately states services, fees, provided information, outcomes, and any relevant information in order to correctly bill services. Fees, gifts, and other benefits will not be acceptable for professional referrals, or accepted for professional referral, preferential advertising, or any arrangement that establish a quid pro quo relationship, means no dual relationship. A big no. Okay. Public statement. So in domain 8, we have learnt record keeping and fees. So keeping all client records for minimum 7 years after the termination, or longer if the law requires. Documents everything accurately, no accepting gifts or fees or referrals, no quid pro quo agreements, bill accurately always. Domain 9, public statements. Public statement, accuracy, adequacy, and completeness of information. Before disclosing of any statement or information, certificate ensure accuracy, context of the information, and completeness of the communication. Citing source of citing citing source citing source of copyright and published material. Certificate obtain consent of the publisher or copyright holder before citing any published or copyrighted material, or source must be properly cited. Hmm. Properly cited and adhere to any and all required guidelines. So if you are using any material for your work or for your practice, or you are using any research or any author's output, you should take the consent from the publisher. When I was doing my project for the coursework, I used one publisher research, then I just mailed them just for the consent. and they provided me the consent uh, to use that research abstract. And so you should be aware about the consent of the publisher. If you are using any research or any work done by another professional, you should have you should properly cite it and take consent from that professional. 9.3, statement of contractual agreement. Any contractual agreement will be made in good faith and clear objective. This is very um and this is very important to make your work in a good faith and with clear objective, because here in our services client is priority. You should do your best for the client. So you should have the good faith and the clear objective. Okay. 9.4, advertisement and announcement of services. Certificates will not make any representative advertisement. Certificate will not make any misrepresentative advertisement or announcement. To avoid any misrepresentation or misunderstanding, certificates should use a professional title, degree, credential which accurately represent their education or training. Certificate obtain permission before using QABA approved logo, approved coursework, or continuing education provider logos as outlined in QABA policies or procedure and approved provider policies and guidelines. Statement on behalf and organization places of employment. Statement on behalf of organization places of employment are not made without prior consent of the organization or any place of employment. Statements should embody the mission of the QABA, be factual, adhere to all ethical guidelines outlined in this document. So the domain 9 is teaching us we should be only use the credential that accurately represent your training. No misleading as getting permission before using the QABA logo. Don't speak on behalf of your organization without the consent. And yes, for social media account also. And this is the last domain, research domain. Research is to conducted only after approval is obtained by the institution review board only and will be conducted using approved. Okay, whenever you are conducting a research or any ABA research with your clients, so you should take permission from your supervisor. And for the institutional, the certificate's primary goal is to maintain clients' welfare while contributing to the scientific education and applied value in a scientific way. Obtaining obtaining informed consent for the research. So informed consent is obtained from the participant prior to conduct any research. Informed consent includes the nature of the study, limits and confidentiality. And the client have right to decline unforeseen consequences, uh, the use of data obtained and the result of the study, and the researcher contact information. Any other requirements set forth by the institutional reward review board. Welfare in research. Research should not cause physical or psychological harm to the participant, client, student, or subordinates. All the attempts are made to minimize discomfort or stress during participation. Deception. Deception should be avoided when conducting a research unless it has been determined that the research will add scientific education and applied value. It would not be possible to conduct without the use of deception. The researcher will consult with their educational institution or other overseeing regulation board regarding the deception and apply the most stringent regulation. Participants will not be offered excessive inducement for participating in or reporting scientific results. Debriefing. Debriefing. All the participants will be briefed at the conclusion of the participation or as indicated by the applicable regulatory board. Deframing includes, but it is not limited to explaining the purpose of the study, reviewing result when available, answering the participants' questions. It includes answering the participants' questions, offering a copy of research publication once it's complete. So whenever you are working with the client and you are conducting a research on it, you should offering the copy of the research publication, and you should answer all the participants question related to the study or related to the treatment. Research data and result. So the research will not use misleading and fabricated data. You should not use the false data. It should be true only. Reasonable step to correct errors in data are taken if when errors occurs. Duplication of data is not permissible when presented a new original data. The researcher make his or her data available for the verification purpose when requested. Should historical data be mentioned as discussed in research citation and must reflect the original nature and location of the data adhere to all ethical guidelines as the outlined in this documentation. Plagiarism and research publication. Plagiarism and research publication. So plagiarism is unacceptable. Approved appropriate citation must be used in it in your research publication. When using another's work, researcher will credit those added substantial contribution to the research when publishing his or her work. So we should credit all other professionals research work that we are using. So we should credit the professional. So domain 10. So we have covered all these QABA Ethical Code of Conduct. So domain 10 we have completed. So let's okay, so now I want you to do something before you close this video. Let's do some questions of this domain. So the first question is, if you are a QSPS and you notice your colleague is falsifying session data according to the QABA board ethics, first is your what is your first action? Okay. So you should inform the colleague for the violation first. Whenever you seeing that another colleague is doing falsifying the session data, so you should inform the colleague for the violation of the violation. Okay, next one is a certificate keep providing services despite. Okay, so uh, why we should inform the colleague? So the sequence matter: inform the colleague first and escalates the QABA only if conduct continues. Skip to immediate reporting only when there is danger and neglect or legal risk. Certificates keep providing services despite the significant personal mental health challenges because their caseload is full, which ethical standards are violated. We can see the 2.4 impaired certificates and avoid harm. So both 2.4 and 6.1 is correct. Why is it correct? Because ethics domain overlap. 2.4 covers impairment directly and 6.1 requires avoiding harm to the client, and full caseload is never an ethical justification for continuing impaired practices. A certificate mention a client's diagnosis and a home situation to staff not involved in the case during a team meeting which standard is violated. A certificate mentions a client diagnosis and home situation to the staff not involved in the case during a team meeting which standard is violated. Confidential information, maintaining confidentiality, and again disclosure authorization. Okay, so all three are correct. Why? Because client info is confidential and disclosure without authorization is prohibited. And 3.6 says sharing to unauthorized individual violates maintaining confidential. So we should always check all these things. A punishment procedure has been placed for 2 weeks. Placed for 2 weeks. Uh, the team noticed the target's behavior is now occurring more intensely. So what should happen? So the punishment, so if it's happening, so we can remove the punishment procedure immediately. Let's see the, yeah, 4.7, section 4.7 that we have seen. If the behavior becomes more frequent or more intense after a punishment procedure, you must remove immediately. No waiting and no gradual phase outs. A supervisor's QABA certificates lapse due to the missed renewal. Can they continue supervising their current trainee while processing renewals? No, no, no active certification. No inactive certification means supervision must stop immediately. So if you like this video, if you understood the domain ethics code of conduct, so I hope it helped you in some way to understand all the ethics, and this is very important. So now I want you to do something before we close this video. So you can drop your answers in the comment section, and in the comment section you can tell me which domain do you think it will be the hardest to remember and why. Because in my case, uh, the section 7 I found it difficult. you can tell me yours, and teaching it to someone else is the best part, best way to make it stick. So teach it to me in the comment section. I read every single comment. And if this helped you, so like this video, share it with your study group, subscribe to Behavior Canvas because we have a lot more coming. So next video, we are going uh, on the supervision hours and the fieldwork documentation, and the section that trips our nearly every QSPS candidates. So see you there. Bye bye.